the dream team, the NBA took over. But to get to this point, there's some spark to what Harper said. I'll tell you why. The United States, to field its best team, would have to use professionals. I mean, no offense to these college kids that are out there busting their behinds because they want to make the team, no question about it. But let's face the facts. I mean, the talent in the MLB is just phenomenal, over the top. So you'd have to have a situation, I think, that again, like hockey faced the same scenario in the Winter Games. You have to shut the season down. So if we're going to go to the Olympics, we're going to have to rearrange the schedule. That's where it gets dicey, guys, because they need those games. All owners need all those games. We all know, to pay the bills and to pay their high-priced ball players. So you're getting into a real difficult situation there. It wouldn't be fair to say, "Oh, I'm going to take 5 Dodgers from the team, but I only need 1 Minnesota Twin," or something like that. You can't do that and let the other team still play the regular season. That wouldn't work. So there is, I understand where Bryce is coming from. I mean, you're in a situation now where, let's face it, there is no amateur versus pros anymore for the most part in the Olympics. I mean, I know in some of the minor sports there might be, but for this situation, that would be off the wall. I kind of agree with him. I mean, the World Baseball Classic, I can't relate to it much. As you guys know, I don't travel much, so I never see any games that are played in Southern California, Arizona, or Florida. So, I mean, yeah, on TV, but in person, it just doesn't cut it for me. And plus, it's in spring training where guys are loosening up, getting ready for the season. There's other reasons why I don't like it in the springtime, but I've talked too long, but I'd like to hear what you guys have to say too.
No, that's all right. You're thorough. Don't worry. I have my fair share, but I'm going to turn over to M Square.
Hey, I'm not a fan of the World Baseball Classic either, George. I like the hype getting to the Olympics, and right now they're hyping up the ladies basketball team because Caitlin Clark didn't make it. The Olympic gymnasts, they just had their thing on a few weeks ago. So you see the bits and pieces of it getting you to Paris here in a couple of months. I think baseball would do outstanding. They have to rearrange the All-Star game the year that they will put the baseball players in there. Give the guys who aren't participating a nice little vacation there, and then, adjust from there. But I'd love to see baseball in the Olympics again with the pro players, just like they do with basketball. I just think it would be good for the sport too. Baseball needs a shot in the arm, fellas. It's the only sport really without a solid cap in some capacity. Baseball's the only one.
The one thing most people don't know, though, is in the past, you've had players that are not on the 40-man roster, pro players in the minor leagues on it. So it's not like there aren't any former major leaguers on it to go along with the college kids. So I just want to make sure we all set the record straight. If you're not on a 40-man roster, you're game to play. You really, really are, of course, the minor leagues. And the United States has had success with past managers winning it. I know Jim Leland won one. So just, so I see where you're coming from. Now, I'm going to take a different position than you guys, but then again, I have good reason to. I live in Miami, okay? The World Baseball Classic games are held over at Lone Depot Park. And you know what? They pack that place. They really do. I mean, the Marlins get a little bit of they in Miami, you can fill them up with World Baseball Classic all day long. Our team's another story. A lot of that's success driven, but I don't know. Now, don't get me wrong. The Olympics would be a great opportunity to do it. I was actually at Dodger Stadium myself when they had it as a demonstration sport in 1984. So at Dodger Stadium, I happened to go ahead and see the Koreans play. It was pretty neat just watching the Koreans take on the U.S. over at Dodger Stadium. That was my only trip there. But I see both sides. I don't have a problem with the Olympics. But me personally, I happen to like the World Baseball Classic. I really, really do. So, but that's why we have different opinions. And those of you individuals in the chat room or on YouTube channels, respectively, feel free to give us your thoughts. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the San Diego Padres infielder Tucupita Marcano. I don't know if I'm doing better with that.
I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna help you out here because he used to be a Pirate. Tucupita Marcano.
Good enough for me. Okay, has been issued a lifetime ban for violating MLB sports betting rules and policies. The league announced. So, all right, well, Mr. Pittsburgh guy, you can go ahead and lead off with this one.
So how damn dumb is this guy when he's betting? He's on the DL, okay, or whatever they call it now, the injured list.
Right.
He's on the injured list. Why not bet against Pittsburgh every game while you're betting? You know, you're bound to win at least 50% or more. But no, he didn't win any of those 24 bets he placed. Here's the bottom line with that. Okay, at the same time, this guy gets busted and like 5 other people get busted. They come out with the little blurb about they've concluded their investigation of Shohei Ohtani, and he's completely exonerated from anything that's gone on here. And nobody, yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, this is just garbage. Okay, neither one of you gentlemen or anybody else is going to convince me that much money is going to be taken out of somebody's bank account. I don't care how much they're making, that much money without it being recognized that it's gone. Nor can you convince me that he was not part of that. I just don't buy into it. I don't care. I just believe that Ohtani had something to do with it. And at some point it's going to come out. He's too much of a cash cow right now for Major League Baseball. That's why they let it go. But it's easy to point the finger at Marcano. They caught him like that, and he's got his lifetime ban.
Okay, George.
That's an interesting perspective, Mark. I appreciate that because I kind of agree with you on the Ohtani thing because, yeah, it seems like, boy, that investigation was pretty quick. You know what I mean? I mean, they wrapped that up pretty good, like tied it up like a package, like you tie a ribbon around a Christmas present.
Yep.
And, oh man, oh no, he didn't know anything about it. This guy did it all. Oh, come on. I know exactly what you're talking about there, Mark. And but this kid, yeah, now we're talking about a guy that's struggling to even be in the big leagues and to go out and do something like that. And he knows the policies. And we had a situation like that in Detroit with the football team. 4 or 5 guys started doing a little bit of gambling, and we know that Roger Goodell came down on those guys, and still other teams as well. He has. But baseball, I mean, one thing I'll say is. When you start getting involved in this stuff, it's like you said, though, it's got to be fair. You got to look at the whole situation. I'm not going to infer that this was part of the Ohtani stuff, but who knows? Might not never know. But the situation is still in the player's hands. You should know the rules. You should not violate those rules. My God, there's a living, look, Pete Rose, banned for life. I mean, everybody in the country that's a sports fan knows that story, but, and here we hear it again. It's 2023, 24 rather, excuse me. And now we're seeing this happen again to a kid that's really like struggling to make it, in the big leagues. But yeah, I don't know. There could be more. There could be more, more details to come on this because it might go beyond just him.
All right, well, all right, George, you took the words out of my mouth about Pete Rose, okay?
Okay.
So all I can tell you about this guy is he better learn about Pete Rose, and if he knows what Google is, whatever language he speaks, okay, Google up Pete Rose. And with Pete Rose, you're going to find the late Commissioner Bart Giamatti, who went out there and sent Rose packing for good. So, yeah, you can't bet on your own team. You really can't. I know that some of these other players are only getting penalized for a year if they're not betting on their own team, but gambling is a no-no. Really? I mean, here's a guy, to me, who knows what could have been, but now we know that the only way he's going to be playing ball isn't going to be an MLB. You could go to the Korean League, go to Japan, Mexico, or wherever, because he's not going to be playing in Major League ballparks. So with that said, Katie, why don't you go out there and let everybody give us some information, all right?
This station identification is brought to you by the South Florida Tribune Publishing Company, which published a book. And yes, the author is Scott Morganroth. Lessons from the Microphone, tuning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders. It is available on Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, Apple and Google Books. audio book to come out later. Watch for details. And George Eichhorn wrote the foreword. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can get this podcast wherever you get your podcast. iHeartRadio, Google, Apple, Castbox, Deezer, you name it, we're there. Monday nights is 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Tuesday nights is Inside the Pigskin. Wednesday nights is Sports Exchange. You just never know what sport we're going to be talking about. Anything from cornhole to NHL to MLB to NBA. You name it, it's on there. Thursday night, we're revamping that night. Watch for more details. Fire Up will be on Wednesday nights and sometimes Thursday nights. Watch for details. Scott has the Motor City Mad Mouse Show, which is on nofilter.net. Our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. You can find Scott's writing, George writing. I take pictures. And let's see what else. You can email us, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you have any show ideas, or if you want to sponsor a show or sponsor a segment, you can call Scott 954-304-4941 if I missed anything, or more importantly, if you missed anything. Especially that red subscribe button by George. Hit it, like us, share us with everybody. But if you missed anything that I said, please read it on the bottom. It's scrolling for your information. Back to the program.
Thank you, Candy. All right. Well, just so you know, on Twitter /X, you can find us at Tribune South. So if you're listening to the audio version on a lot of our audio partners, and at Tribune South, in addition to what Candy said. Very good, Candy. Well done. All right. We're going to talk about a little bit interleague play this weekend that brought us the Dodgers at the Bronx facing the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. Just to give you an overview of the series, the Dodgers took 2 out of 3. Once upon a time, the Brooklyn Dodgers played in New York City. But Friday night, the Dodgers won a 2-1 contest, 11 innings, 48,048 were there. Saturday night, Dodgers 11, the Yankees 3, 48,374. And by the way, folks, these are all good lottery numbers if you ever want to get one. Okay. I mean, because they're the ones that aren't even thought. Okay, and then finally on Sunday night, Yankees 6-4, 48,023. Do I see a recurring theme? 48,000. The other 3 numbers, you got 3 digits, you got 4 digits, you got 5 digits. But anyway, George, doesn't this further strengthen your belief about interleague play, especially when you have rivals that are World Series, let alone in this particular case, they lived in the same city?
Yeah, Scott, that's a special series, man. When those kind of teams get a chance to meet up, obviously, interleague play has been around forever. It seems like now, but you and I and Mark can remember the days when we didn't have that, and you had to wait till the postseason, or the Stars played each other in the All-Star game. But no, I like interleague play. I mean, I know a lot of people still don't like it, but boy, oh boy, that was a marquee matchup. ESPN was there and Fox was there. And the thing that really, really stood out for me, though, was the fact that, the Dodgers were able to come in and take two games. A lot of, they've had great teams. We know that for the past several years, but the Yankees have just had a phenomenal season so far. I think a little bit of the spotlight with the other series that was going on, as you guys know, in London between the Mets and the Phillies, might have taken some of the audience or some of the interest away, but not too much. Because like you said, Scott, those were huge crowds, 48,000. And obviously, I'm sure it was just a electric atmosphere because those two teams are just so proud of their franchises. My God, all the greats that have played for those two teams over the years is phenomenal. And now you got a new set of younger, great players that they got. So on paper, it looks like a preview of the World Series, but we all know that it takes more than paper. It takes more than playing each other in June to play each other again in October. So, but those are 2 darn good ball clubs, both of them. And I enjoyed that series this weekend on the tube.
Okay, Mark.
So, fellas, I had the extraordinary opportunity to go to New York City on Saturday. I took a 1-day bus trip. My daughter and I do that every year at the end of the school year. So we did our trip on Saturday. That city was a buzz. You saw as many Dodger shirts as you saw Yankee shirts. It was interesting. We went to the MLB store. That's a common stop for me when I go up there. And they just had it loaded with Dodger stuff, and people just plowing in to get that Dodger stuff.
Right.
It was interesting, though. Like, you didn't see any people like having any kind of conversation outside the fact that they were going to play that game that day. It seemed like a pretty well modified crowd that was not into having any dispute about baseball currently, because it is only the beginning of June. I think that they respect that rivalry, even though it's not a real rivalry today because of how many years it's been since Brooklyn and the Yankees played each other on a regular basis. But I think it's very well respected up there. I know that they had some kind of group of Dodger fans that met in one location and kind of had a police escort down to the stadium. They all went down together. So it was really pretty cool. You're right, George. There's so much young talent on both of those teams. I think Soto comes back, though, today or tomorrow, maybe it is. And that might have had a slight damper on things, because you always go there. You want to see Soto play right now. He's so red hot. But, Judge, and the list goes on and on. But I will make one little fact, and I know you guys don't want me to talk about Pittsburgh all the time, but Pirates beat the Dodgers 2-3 last week before they went up to New York.
That's okay. All right. I'll put it to you this way. Mark and George are somewhat right. You're talking about a new generation that doesn't understand the history of this rivalry back in the day. We're talking about the newer generation. They didn't appreciate the Dodgers and the Yankees when they played in those World Series back in the 70s and the 80s.
Yep.
They don't have anything to go on, is really what they don't. So, yeah, I think it's a great rivalry, obviously, but, unless these kids are on their computers going out there and Googling this, I think a lot of the old timers or old school people appreciate it a lot more. Hopefully the newer generation will. And I think if it does happen in the World Series, then maybe we'll revisit this a year from now and see whether there's any traction to it. But to have a series like this in the summer here in the month of June, yeah, I think it's pretty good. The fact that you were able to get up there, Mark, more power to you.
Yeah, that was pretty cool to be there for that. It was a great Saturday in New York City. It really was.
But when you're putting 48,000 plus in there, let me tell you, there's a lot more people that view this rivalry than most people even think.
Yeah. Let me say this, Scott, too. You're talking about the young people in baseball. Baseball isn't for the young people today. It's so interesting. It's about a 35 to 40-year-old and older crowd that's deeply engaged in baseball. I bet you if I walked into my classroom at school and I ask, I have 150 total students, and I ask 150 students to name 5 baseball players in Major League Baseball today, I don't know if I get maybe more than 2 or 3 kids that could do that.
Well, hell, if you're going to go there, I can tell you a story. When I was in Tampa, I had an opportunity to ask Mike Marotta if he knew who Mickey Lolich was. He's a left-handed pitcher. And let me tell the story before you interrupt.
Yeah.
So I go over to Troy Percival, say, "Hey, Troy, this guy doesn't even know who Mickey Lolich is." So he says, "What?" I mean, Troy is a nice guy. I spent time with him on the bench at the dugout. He said, "Marotta, come over here. You mean to tell me you don't know who Mickey Lolich is? And this guy's wearing his number." Left-hander or whatever. And Troy Percival went out there and gave Marotta a little bit of a history lesson. And the problem is a lot of today's younger players don't know the history of the game. Some of them do, but many of them don't. So
it's interesting because it's so much more readily available. All professional sports are so much more readily available. You can watch any team, anywhere, anytime.
Right.
But I feel like the younger generation doesn't watch sports. They've got all that other crap that they're so much interested in, and YouTube and all that other stuff. Oh, yeah. They don't have that interest in sports. There's not that passion like it was for years and years.
Yeah, and then of course the streaming services. There's so many options out there for entertainment, especially the young people. But piggybacking on that comment, Mark and Scott, that's why these teams are and leagues are going after Apple and different streaming services, Amazon, whatever. You got to do that because the only way they can penetrate that market of that younger group of fans, all the major sports, but baseball has more of, I think, a more of a legacy of being, like you said, an older person's kind of favorite sport. But the fact is that's why you're seeing these contracts extended to these streaming services, and they got to do that because they got to try to reach those younger audiences.
Yeah, that's true. But you know what? We're not. I get where you're coming from, and I'll probably, when I write my book, Lessons from the Microphone Part 2, I'll be getting into more. That's why I'm running a second part to make sure that we have updates about where we're going, and streaming will be heavily talked about.
Right.
Last topic of the night, and then we have our parting shots. Speaking of the Mets and the Phillies, I wonder if I'm doing myself any favors giving you these topics ahead of time, Eichhorn. Maybe you should get them dry because you keep talking about things that are ahead. Kidding with you, okay? Everybody likes to be prepared. Just kidding. Okay. But speaking of the Mets and the Phillies in London over the weekend, the MLB World Tour in London Stadium, the crowds again were great. 7-2 on Saturday. The Phillies beat the Mets. 53,882 showed up. If that wasn't good enough, on Sunday, the Mets won 6-5 with the Phillies, 55,074. Well, I'll lead off with this way. That way, Eichhorn steal my thought this time.
Yeah.
But in all fairness, okay, the MLB's a little behind on the London stuff because the NFL has been doing it for years. But you have to do it. You really, really do. And I think that to me is something that has to get done. And just an updated score in hockey, the Edmonton Oilers are leading the Florida Panthers 1-0. So, you know, I felt like the Penguins and the Panthers are going to go 7. I really believe that. But staying with my thought on this, the NFL's been in London a long time. Now it's MLB. If they're going to be able to expand, to go out there and reach that audience, I could see it. So I'm really intrigued by the London series, and I think they're definitely on to something as well. So that, and also that goal that Edmonton ended up getting was while the Florida Panthers were on a power play. So, well, you know, even though hockey is not our primary conversation tonight, we still feel we have an obligation to get those updates on to you. But once again, London's a great hit. I'll be curious to see where MLB is going to go with other series as they take them internationally. But those numbers don't lie. People in the United Kingdom love American sports. That's why the NFL and MLB are there. And, you know, and I know that and the NBA is doing some stuff, and we all know the NHL is a global sport anyway. So with that said, Mark, what are your thoughts of the Mets and the Phillies?
Well, it's interesting because I had mentioned this earlier today in my show, and I have a guy who comes on and he interacts on the show. His name is Michael Watt. He's from Great Britain. He's from Leeds, and he was talking about how excited people were over there to get Major League Baseball over there. For the first time in 20 years, they could actually get some baseball over there, watch it on TV over there and everything. He said he has no problem getting NFL or NBA. He said, but to get baseball over there and be able to watch it, Major League Baseball was a thrill for the people over there. I think baseball's trying to catch up now with the NBA, the NHL even, and the NFL, because baseball kind of, even though they play the World Classic and all that kind of stuff like we talked about at the beginning of the show, I just don't think they have the market because there are so many other competitive leagues out there, like the Korean Baseball League, like the Japanese, now getting them out there to other countries like this, I think it's a great thing. Getting a guy like Bryce Harper out there and his celebration must have sent those people over the top when he did a soccer celebration after he hit that home run. And I've grown to really like that kid. I think he's a pretty good ambassador now from when he was a young guy for baseball. So yeah, you got to keep doing this, but you got to make sure you're getting the right teams there.
I can only imagine how many Bryce Harper jerseys were sold in England. I can just only imagine. And I said this to a friend of mine today, that if I had to build a team, and I know this will be a bit controversial, if I had Ohtani and Harper, I still love Harper. I really do. The Phillies had to move him to second base because they had to protect him from himself. They wouldn't be running any more walls. That was a franchise-saving decision for the Phillies. We all know Bryce loves the outfield. He'll go wherever he's told. He's the only guy, I think, in today's MLB that could have played with our era back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. He's that old school. So, yeah, I think, I don't think it's much of a prediction, but I think MLB did all right on the Bryce Harper jersey sales. All right, George, I'll let you wrap up the topic. We'll go to parting shots.
Well, yeah, they've been to London 3 or 4 times now, Major League Baseball, but that's not nearly enough. And I agree, they do seem to be a little bit behind. They used to have all-star postseason tours all the time to Japan or to Korea. I noticed they don't do that as much anymore. And if they do something, it's like this on a wider scale. The thing that really is interesting, and I don't know if it was Bryce or a couple of his teammates mentioned a couple things. Number one, they felt like there was too much dead time or layover time. The commissioner insisted on 2 days off after they arrived, and I saw some of the ball players said, "No, we should have played the next day." Okay, we got the travel day coming in, but anyways, that's all part of negotiations and that. But one of the ball players from the Phillies thought they should play immediately the next day, not wait 2 days, because as you know, it was only a 2-game series, Saturday, Sunday. It wasn't a Friday. And then the other thing that has been tossed around is having 4 teams go over there. That's an interesting thing. We have a little mini tournament among the 4 teams. 4, obviously, probably would be 2 from the American League, 2 from the National League, whatever. But that's another, I think, that deserves some consideration. In the future, as opposed to just 2 teams going over, have 4 teams there. And it has to be done. They got to try to do more international wise. They have so many different ball players from so many different nations. And we know in spring training, they always have a trip down to Latin America. They always play, 2 teams are picked for that. But one thing I will give baseball credit for, it's not London, but it's the fact that they go to the Little League World Series, or they go to the College World Series, or they go to a place where Candy and Scott went to called the Field of Dreams. I do applaud Manfred and his predecessor, Bud Selig, for looking out for those kind of venues too. And now I believe is it called Ricketts Stadium, where they're going to, which was a Negro League stadium. Yeah, they're playing a game there this summer, which is great. I'm glad that they're going to some of these parks that normally would never ever see Major League Baseball. So, it's a good and it's a bad situation for me. Not bad that they only went to London for 2 games, but I do applaud them though for going to some of these other sites. But yeah, guys, you got to do the international thing. You got to have at least a couple of those trips every year.
Listen, unless you've been across a big pond, which I haven't, but hopefully one of these days I will, I'll watch ad too. Let these players do a little sightseeing and get out with the fans and market the game either. I don't care about the 3rd game. I'd rather they be out on the street signing autographs than doing the international thing and hyping the sport a little. I don't know how much promotion went into that series. I know there was talks that there wasn't as much promotion on either side with this one, so it is imperative you get the right teams there. Come on, I think the one day they didn't play, sightseeing, getting to know the players is how you really build the product around the world. So, that's what you've got to do. Yes, you cited out a lot of different examples that MLB is trying different things. But ultimately, what the reality is that, they are moving it around. That don't think about series. I think in Australia, I think they went down to play games in Australia too.
Yes, they did. First time ever.
Right, and they have 2 regular season games in spring training, as I've seen in recent years. So, but I'm not going to get into the gist there. I just want to stay on point with the MLB in London. And George, I can see where you're coming from, having 4 teams there and spreading it out a little bit longer. What's the difference? But we'll see how it all plays out. I know it's still relatively new compared to most, but I'm going to backtrack on what I said. That's why the World Baseball Classic, to me, is something that I really like, because you're getting a lot of these rivalries in a smaller, condensed area, and a lot of these guys are really having a chance to play. It's a lot more heated than you think. George, you've never been to Lone Depot Park, and I've been there when it has been pretty close to sold out. Of course, it doesn't hurt that the New York Yankees are in town either, but that place can get pretty loud when you get people there. And I know the World Baseball Classic at Lone Lone Depot Park, to me, can get loud when it has to be. All right, great job, guys. So we're going to do now, we're going to go to party shots. And since we're going to lead off with George Eichhorn this time.
Well, thank you. Well, this is a salute. Okay. Incredible story in college sports. Congratulations to Oklahoma. I'm just going to read a little bit of this. I'm sure most fans have probably heard this, but Oklahoma captured an unprecedented fourth consecutive Women's College World Series championship at Devon Park on Thursday night. Sooners coach is named Patty Gasso. She sat behind a table in the team room adjacent to Heinz Field and contemplated 5 of the most important players in her program's history. These 5 young ladies, outfielder, infielder, outfielder, a pitcher, 2 pitchers, and she saluted all of them. And what a classy act. I mean, first of all, this is a phenomenal accomplishment for a team like that to be able to go and win 4 titles. And that group of ladies that she coached, just fantastic. I mean, hats off to Oklahoma. I mean, let's face it, most of us know Oklahoma for football, and rarely I've heard of them in basketball, NCAA, but this is a great story. I mean, these girls and ladies went out and won 4 straight times, led by their great coach. So all I wanted to do in my parting shot is to salute them, to salute their fans, and that's quite an achievement. And all of America will be watching. I'm sure they'll get their invitation to the White House, as these teams do, to shake hands with the president. But that being said, again, congratulations to the Lady Sooners.
All right, let's go to the chat room real quick. Puffin Penguin. Yeah, obviously the Panthers are down 1-0. Thanks for your update. We appreciate it. More importantly, Puffin Penguin, we appreciate you just being here on the show. Thank you very much. And if you would kindly subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, for which Mark Maraday of Players once and definitely going to be twice at some point, that would be greatly appreciated. All right, with that said, I'll transition over to Mark Maraday to give me your parting shot, please.
Well, I'm looking forward to the College Baseball World Series, George. There's a lot of great players that we're seeing out there today. LSU, the defending champ, got knocked out, and they're a heck of a team, but they're a young team. There are some great teams out there. Today, NC State's beating Georgia today, 5-2, and NC State's a 10th-ranked team, and Georgia's the 7th-ranked team. If you don't watch college sports, you're missing the purest form of sports out there. And just like you talked about softball, I feel like college baseball is just as pure. Watching those guys, the level of excitement and energy they bring to the field each and every play gets me on my edge of my seat. And I don't even, I don't even have a rooting interest in one particular team. I just like the fact that these young guys are so energetic and enthusiastic about playing the game still that it makes me feel like I'm a young kid again watching it, because you don't see that with the professionals anymore. And that's my parting shot. Take the time out and watch a couple of innings of the College World Series, Baseball World Series. I promise you won't regret it.
Many years ago, I had an opportunity. I didn't cover anything there, but I drove by Rosenblatt Stadium, and it's a great location because that brings everybody close together in one spot. So it's the most central location. Yeah, I'd love to get to a College World Series one day. So, there you go. Yeah, I enjoy watching it. The only thing I have a problem with college versus MLB is you use the aluminum bats versus the wood bats. And when you're looking at comparison, just hope a lot of these guys can transition into MLB. But in terms of the energy and the enthusiasm, I'll give me a break. College sports is unbelievable. Well, my parting shot relates to the ball game I covered yesterday. Miami Marlins lost to the Cleveland Guardians yesterday over at Lone Depot Park. Here's the problem with the Marlins right now, okay? They've lost 4 straight series in a row. They were on the road, lost to San Diego Padres 2-1. They were at home, lost to the Texas Rangers 2-1. They were at home. They lost to the Tampa Bay Rays 2-0 in the Sunshine Series. And at home, they lost to the Cleveland Guardians. That was a 2-1 series as well. The Marlins are going to be on the road the next 2 series, and they're going to play, you guessed it, the New York Mets and at the Washington Nationals. Now, it's pretty hard, okay, to go ahead and win games when Jazz Chisholm is hitting 249, albeit he hit a home run last night. He got his 9th in the year. Kneecap City, is this a Detroit show? We do tend to go ahead and talk about Detroit topics from time to time, but it's more like a national show where we do incorporate Detroit. So thanks a lot for joining us. We appreciate seeing hearing from you. But Jazz Chisholm's hitting 249. Brian Dela Cruz hitting 248. Josh Bell, heard of him, George, hitting 256, 7 home runs, 31 RBI. Jake Berger, never heard of him? Okay. You've got him hitting 223. He hit a home run yesterday, so he brings his total up to 5, 21 ribbies. Jesus Sanchez, 244. Hit 4 home runs, 23 ribbies. Okay. Xavier Edwards is a young player, okay, who to me, again, the Marlins are using a lot of young players. Then you have Nick Gordon in there with 6 home runs, 21 RBI. But my favorite is Dane Myers because I wrote a story on him recently when I was back at Comerica Park. You could be hearing more about him. And so you've got Nick Gordon hitting 231 and Xavier Edwards was hitting 167. Boy, I'll tell you, these batting averages are high, aren't they? And we'll go down the lineup a little bit more. You got Vidal Brujan, 256, just got called up. And last but not least, the catching position isn't doing any favors in Miami. Okay, at 172 with 2 home runs, 10 RBI. Do we talk football here? Every now and then, Kneecap said we do talk it. You know, if somebody wants to deviate from their parting shots of baseball, we'll bring it in. We talked hockey last week, so we had no problem with that as well. So, you know, but if Kneecap City, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, feel free to subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. Your pitcher was Trevor Rogers, who got a no decision yesterday. I call him Tough Luck Trevor. How on earth are you going to go out there and win games with those kinds of batting averages? I'm trying to think. I don't even think we had anybody on that group that was over 260. That's bad. And just so you know, Kneecap City, our parting shot is what everybody gets a chance to go ahead and say what's on their mind at the end of the show. It's like their own particular topic. All right, Mark, what do you think? You don't have anybody over 260. I have a feeling Berger and Bell will be traded by the deadline. I don't know about Jazz Chisholm, but this team can't swing the bat. They've had tough luck on pitching with Sandy Alcantara being out for the other Cy Young Award winner. But the Marlins need to, we're going to find out soon enough if they're going to go out there and be sellers, which I have a feeling we will. The only guy I really feel sorry for is Skip Schumacher, who took his team to the playoffs a year ago, and all of a sudden the team is really taking a slide. So hope the Marlins can get it together, but I have a feeling that there'll be sellers at the trade deadline. Any of you two want to comment on this one?
It's hard for me to comment on this because I see it happen in another location with almost the identical batting averages.
Yeah,
almost the identical. The only difference between the two is the other location has some really good pitching at the top of the rotation, number 1, 2, and 3.
Right. It's tough sledding.
And I can relate to that too, guys. I mean, here in Detroit, I mean, we've got a similar situation, and we got guys that are really struggling to put 3 good games together. And the Tigers are in a situation very similar to what you described, Scott. They got batters that are not pulling their weight, so to speak, and it's costly. It just seems like, I don't know, pitching is really on a roll this year, dominating more, I think, than I've seen in recent years in Major League Baseball. But the fact is that I think too many of these guys, they're still looking for the long ball. You know, instead of I saw the game yesterday. I went to Detroit and in Milwaukee at Comerica Park, and I was amazed that we had 3 or 4 guys that bunted. Imagine that, they bunted in the major leagues. How rare is that, huh? Well, you got 3 or 4 guys that did it yesterday, 1 for Detroit and 2 or 3 from Milwaukee. I'm just saying that, you know, there are so many ways you can try to become successful as a hitter, but most of them, I think, they rely too much on the long ball. And that really drives those averages down, man, because so many of those guys strike out way too much. So I'm glad you brought that up, Scott. There's other teams in America that are, I mean, in Major League Baseball that are experiencing, maybe not as bad though as Miami. It's a real disappointment, I know, for Marlins fans.
Well, those averages are low. And by the way, Kneecap City, George Eichhorn is your Detroit correspondent. So every opportunity he gets for Detroit comment, he does put in there. I don't mind there because I'm actually from Metro Detroit as well. I just try to keep the show balanced with a lot of different topics around the country. And then, sure, if one presents itself, we will do that. So, here, this is 108 Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morgan, Rough Motor City Animal. Please be joined by George Eichhorn and Mark the Barber Meriday. So with that said, Candy, why don't you come on here and let everybody know how they can get a hold of us?
Kneecap City, I want to tell you that if you subscribe to us on Tuesday nights, we talk football inside the pigskin, dedicated just to football talk. But Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, football. Wednesday night, Sports Exchange. We talk all the different sports. Thursday nights is Fire Up. We talk all sports too there. If you like to listen to a podcast, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Deezer, Geo7, you name it. We're where you get your podcasts. We have a website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can see Scott's writing, George's writing, my pictures. And you can get transcripts of the Detroit Lions, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Miami Dolphins. We also get stuff from Inter Miami, the Miami Marlins. We also get stuff from some of the local colleges, whether it be the Miami Hurricanes, USF, FAU, or the Gators. This show tonight is being sponsored by South Florida Tribune Publishing Company, which published its first book last year. It's called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders, and it was written by none other than the Scott Morgan, Motor City Mad Mouth Morganroth, and that's a mouthful. And the foreword is written by George Eichhorn. It is available on Amazon, Google, Barnes & Noble, Apple, or Kindle. We are working on the audio version you can hear more about it. We also have a store where you can purchase some South Florida Tribune or Motor City Mad Mouth merchandise. It is on www.southfloridatribune.com, our website. If you'd like to be one of the sponsors of the show or advertise, you can call Scott 954-304-4941. Twitter at Tribune South. And what we do ask that you do regular, if you're going to be one of our subscribers, that you subscribe to those of the panelists that are on the show. Mark's got his own show. Go watch it, subscribe, support them as well, and support us with that red subscribe button. Thanks, guys. Back to the program.
And I should also mention, too, as well, those individuals that participate in the chat room, if I see you're active enough and you're really interested, we would not mind having you on as a guest from time to time as well. So that'll give you more motivation not only to subscribe to our channel, but if you participate and you give us your contact information, then we'd be more than happy to join this as well. So with that said, George Eichhorn, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
All right. As Candy mentioned, I write for the South Florida Tribune under the Motor City Tribune banner. And at the end of my column there's a link to the book that I wrote, which was several years back, but it's still a great little book called Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. Thank you for the photo of that right in the corner there. And you can buy that at Amazon or Barnes & Noble as well. Find me at LinkedIn. You find me at Twitter at SandGSports99. You can always email me at gicorn@yahoo.com. And I'm very proud to be part of these shows, especially the 108 Stitches and the Sports Exchange. And then Scott and I have been together on tackling sports for well over 40 years now. So it's a great avenue. The shows that Scott and Candy and And Mark, all you guys that are putting these shows together, I applaud you. Great work behind the scenes.
Okay, I also want to reach out to I Love Dusty and Braden. What's up, Scott? What's up? Is I'm glad to see you in the chat room, Dusty. Thanks a lot for joining us. So, and we look forward to seeing you on every opportunity situation present. Okay, M Square, let them know how they can reach you.
Okay, no problem. Hey, you can reach us on every social media platform you can think of. We're either OSP with MM or Original Sports Podcast with Mark Maraday or Original Sports Podcast. You can also check out our webpage, podpage.com/Original Sports Podcast with Mark Maraday. We are on Tuesday nights on Roku from 9 to 10 doing the Original Sports Podcast show. We normally have our show on Tuesday nights live everywhere you can watch a podcast. Usually from 7:05 to about 8:15 on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, you name it, we're there. And we drop our audio and our upgraded video on Thursdays. So we'd love for you to subscribe to us, join us every week, chat in with us. It's been a fun run so far.
And by the way, Dusty, just so you know, I'll be watching it after the conclusion of the show, so it'll be pretty interesting. So, but that said, I want to thank George and Mark for being on. We will be adding more and more new faces as we come along to obviously get different opinions. I'm always searching for new talent to try to make every show better. More opinions, the merrier. But obviously, we are the three, and we enjoy coming. We enjoy seeing you folks every Monday night here on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel as well. So on behalf of George Eichhorn, Mark Maraday, my name is Scott Morgan, Runt the Motor City Madmouth, thanking you for joining us in this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. And we look forward to seeing you next Monday night. And once again, a special shout out in the chat room as we thank you very much for your participation, your comments, because you know what, we're not here just to talk to ourselves. We like that participation in the chat room, and that's what it's all about. So once again, good night, everybody. We'll see you next Monday.
Go Panthers.